My name is Cassius Rayner, and I'm a filmmaker. I have a story to tell you. A story that's actually about my own family. My wife and my daughters are the most precious things to me. They really are my everything. We're a typical family, like any other. But when my second daughter was born, our world was changed forever. And we began a new journey in an unfamiliar world, guided and supported by an individual that would become a very significant and important person in our lives. Let me take you back to 2011. We'd known for a long time during pregnancy that something wasn't right. The doctors had arranged for a cesarean 2 weeks early. So on the morning, we did our best to try and keep our spirits up. Jessie was delivered and raced to intensive care. She had a heart murmur and something was wrong with her lungs. My wife didn't even get to see her. I stayed by Jessie's side. I desperately needed to hold her and wanted to hold her, but I wasn't allowed. There were no expectations that she would survive, but somehow she kept going. And it was at this point that a person came into our lives, Professor Qureshi. And he helped us to be strong and to stay strong for Jessie and to be with her every step of the way. And eventually she was stable enough to come home. I'll never forget the doctor saying, "Just enjoy her for now." My world just crumbled. But within a few months, she fell very ill again and spent her first birthday in hospital. We were so desperate for answers and how to help her. You can never be prepared for this. We did get to take Jessie home again, but we knew there was a mountain to climb ahead of us. Jessie was now 3, and the day of her surgery arrived. It was the hardest thing to do. As a dad, I just wanted to make everything okay for her, but I couldn't. It's the most painful thing to do, to actually hand over your child to another person who's going to operate on her. The surgeon, Professor Anderson, did a very successful operation, but Jessie had excessive fluid on her lungs. Recovery in hospital went on for months, and these wards and corridors and play areas became our home for a long time. Slowly she became stronger, the love, the support, and her spirit brought her back to us. We left the hospital and tried to rebuild our lives for the next few years. It never left me what the incredible team of doctors and nurses did for us. But we did notice at that time there were children coming to the ward from overseas and realised it was part of a medical mission. I wanted to help, to give back, and that stayed with me for a long time, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how to help. So I got in touch with Professor Qureshi and said, I'm a filmmaker. Let me help. Let me tell the story of your missions overseas. The opportunity arose for me to join Professor Qureshi and the Chain of Hope in Ethiopia. As I sit on the plane with the rest of the team, I wonder what lies ahead. It's such an unknown for me. We arrive and get through the airport very quickly. It's hot and wet. Visibility outside the car is very poor. So that starts to give me a little bit of stress as a filmmaker, because obviously I want to capture good shots. Sitting opposite me is Professor Qureshi. It's then I realise how important this mission really is. And as I watch him, I wonder what his thoughts are. We arrive at the centre with very little sleep, but Professor Qureshi goes straight to work, meeting the local teams.
All right. Yeah, okay.
And within minutes, he's checking the case list, and then heads to the cath lab to check everything out. Whilst waiting for the team to prep for the first operations, I take a walk around the centre and see so many people patiently waiting. I have no idea how many hours they've been waiting here. Professor Qureshi starts work straight away, seeing the patients. It's so busy, it's chaotic, with so many people involved. There's one particular case that proves to be tricky.
So another one, it's a small baby, catheter lab is not functioning properly. We're going to check it out. If we don't do anything, she's just going to get worse and worse and die from it. If we do try it, it's quite a bit of risk involved. So that's a tough decision making we'll have to go through with Mum. So, the dilemma we have is this is a 10-month-old girl with Down syndrome who's been found to have a VSD and pulmonary hypertension, so high pressures in the lungs. The question, she was referred to Chain of Hope, and in London it was decided that she needed to have a cardiac catheter to decide whether she's operable before flying her out to London or Europe for surgery. The problem here is that the centre has a policy of no treatment for Down syndrome babies. So they will not, we're trying to negotiate or discuss, they will not accept baby for catheter, in which case what we'll have to be thinking about, or Chain of Hope will have to think about, is flying the baby to London or Europe somewhere, doing a catheter, and if she's inoperable, then send her back. If she's operable, then continue. So it just introduces an element of complexity in decision making, and we're just trying to sort that out at the moment.
Various operations have been taking place. I've now been invited to document it. There are so many things that were racing through my mind as a parent, and I found it very difficult to keep my filmmaking head on. To be going into an operating theatre to see a child being operated on was just such an unknown for me.
Coming up? Oh yeah.
Yeah, coming up.
So you take the catheter off. Okay. So that's across the vehicle. Now you can follow it around.
And then there's an 18 backboard.
And then, do you want to go backward? Yeah. Actually, let me go position. And then we'll go down. Can you replay, don't do it, replay the video? Not one time, you just repeat a balloon with a bigger balloon. Yeah?
Oh, one side.
Yeah.
So I've just come out of the operating theatre. I had the privilege of watching Professor Qureshi do surgery, but it's been a really surreal experience. It's very strange. Obviously, Professor Qureshi's looked after Jessica, my daughter, for many years, and it was very strange being a dad of a heart child and going into an operating theatre to watch him operate on another child. But it was also a privilege at the same time. Just a very, overall very surreal experience. I've seen quite a lot today. I can see the pressures that he must be under. I can see what he deals with. Some of the children are just not, he's just not able to operate on. Some are. So we're going to be seeing more cases of children today. The work here has just been incredible. A chain of hope, the whole mission, what they've managed to do here so far. There's a lot of limitations, and I think there's real creativity in how they get around and solving the problems, in making sure that they can give the best to the children here possible. Has been a real experience to see today. So I shall be seeing lots more. Wow. It can choke you up. It chokes you up, seeing kids in that situation. The team are working flat out, but there's a short window for me to catch a few of the team for a chat.
Well, I heard about Chain of Hope about 8 or 9 years ago, and there are a lot of children, as you're aware, in this part of the world with rheumatic heart disease. They don't have good access for control of anticoagulants and things like that, so replacing valves obviously has to be done sometimes, but if the valve can be reconstructed and kept, it's much better for the patient. So that's where I came in because of my long experience of valve reconstruction. I was asked if I would come and contribute to the mission, and I was very pleased to do so. And since then, I think I've been on just the 4th mission, and we've probably operated on about sort of 50 children.
I mean, for me, it must affect you on a personal level to want to contribute and commit the time that it takes to come out here and do that. I mean, what makes that decision?
I think just an innate sense and feeling that you want to help. I mean, you see these children and you can't help but, desperately feel for them and their families. So it's nice to have the chance to give something back and help others and, bring something to them. And also, equally as importantly as treating the patients, try to help the generations of surgeons, physicians, nurses here to develop their own programs, because that's the only way they're going to get significant help. But no, it's immensely rewarding, very moving, very touching. Well, Shaq, if I can call him that, and I really go back a little way, but we've had probably more to do with each other through these missions than anything else. And first of all, as you know, he's an extraordinarily talented man, probably one of the best in the world at doing this, particularly with children. So he's highly sought after, technically superb, but also a very amusing man. So it makes missions like this very tolerable and very enjoyable. So I'm always pleased to work with him, with the caveat that I know we're going to have some kind of accident or problem personally along the way, but other than that, it's great fun, and he's a really, really good professional. He's well known for his work at the Evelina. He's highly respected around the world, and has been for a long time. And the cardiologists that I work who do interventional cardiology all speak very highly of him. He's got a huge reputation, and he's very skillful. Yeah. So he's a great asset for the Chain of Hope.
And why do you think he does what he does here?
He's got a big heart.
So back in 2010, I worked as a cardiac physiologist and also a cardiac nurse, as well as a cardiac radiographer. So I did 3 jobs into one. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be part of this team, part of this amazing team to work with Prof. Qureshi.
And on that basis, what is he like to work with?
Shaq, he's a unique person. I've never met anybody who has the ability to speak to people in different ways. We speak to people day in, day out, but he has a different touch. He has a different ability to be able to convey his message in such a way where you understand straight away. And in amongst that, he has the ability to, he's got this charismatic approach to dealing with people, whether they're old, young, small, tall, doesn't really matter. He has this ability to connect with people, which I don't think I've met many people who have this particular quality. It's difficult to pinpoint what it is, but I've worked with him now for 10, 15 years, and he just has this unique quality, and it's just a pleasure working with him.
I think the one thing that's very important with Shaq is the patient comes first, yeah, and that is one of the things he tells every person that comes in the cath lab, that I don't care what device I use or what sort of procedure we're going to do, there is a patient at the end of this table, and we have to respect everything that goes on with this patient. And I think that is the most important part about him. His skill set is second to none. Yeah, I've seen him do amazing things. He has a very loyal team around him, yeah, who work very closely with him. But the thing with him is the techniques he uses, the fact that he pushes the boundaries all the time to make sure that that patient's life, yeah, is cared for, is brought back to what they can do as much as normality can allow them to do, is unique about him. And I think that is the key to the success of Shaq Qureshi. Yeah, he's not scared to push the boundaries, he's not scared to challenge people, he's not scared to actually sit in front of you and tell you this is right, this is wrong.
Okay, my name is Sudevi Bulka and I'm one of a nurse practitioner in Evelina Children's Hospital. I started to work at my first job in the United Kingdom in 2003, and since that I've been working with Professor Qureshi. Professor Qureshi found a potential in me and he said, you are the right person, I'm going to educate you as much as I can so you become the first nurse practitioner to be able to do what a fellow, what somebody who is starting to do cath lab can do. He's unique in every way. He sees things in a flash. I mean, he's like God to me.
Been interviewing some parents today who are all waiting for their children to go into the operating theatre, and I really, really understand that feeling and that fear, because I was there myself once with my wife. We were both waiting for Jessica to go in to theatre, so I could really understand how they were feeling, even with the language barrier. You know, I didn't understand what they were saying, but I kind of understood them in a different way. You just really feel for the parents. You know, they have nothing, absolutely nothing, no help, no support whatsoever. And you know, if it wasn't for the charity, these procedures wouldn't be happening. And what's incredible is they're getting some of the top experts in the world coming here to help. So that's quite an incredible journey for parents here, for their children to have that chance. I have complete admiration for the parents here, because they're by their children's side. They're doing everything they can. And I think that's quite extraordinary. The mission's complete, and it's time for everyone to go back. It was such an incredible journey for me as a filmmaker and a dad. I was so honoured to have shared such private moments with the parents and children. The team did such an extraordinary job, and as we leave, we see the children bouncing back with energy. And as we're finally heading off, there's just one more thing that I need to do to finish this story. Nearly a year later, I managed to catch up with Professor Qureshi to have a final conversation with him. I started with the question, how do you separate your professional work from your home life?
There isn't a good way of separating separating the home life and career. There's a very good example of when I do these missions, and it happened about 2 years ago in Jordan, where I came across a baby that had traveled from Yemen, had been brought over to Amman, to our Gift of Life Chain of Hope mission, and the baby was really severely blue and badly affected, and she looked the spitting image of one of my granddaughters, and that just hit me, and it still does. Because an aunt had taken all the trouble to get her out of Yemen, struggled for days on end to get her to Amman, and then we treated her, and then the day after the operation she was pink, and she was suddenly, within 2 or 3 days, a lively child. But that memory of her looking, still does, like my granddaughter, that affected me and has done. And that's probably one of the main motivations that will keep me involved and keep me going on these missions.
So do you think you'll ever stop?
I'm trying to think of reasons to stop. I go through this thinking in my mind where I try and think whether I should stop or not. And really, at the moment, I come across more reasons for continuing and very few reasons for actually stopping whilst I can contribute, whilst I can do things, whilst I'm competent, whilst my skills are still there. Then I think I've been sent to this planet to do some service, and so I want to do that service.
As I watch these two different people coming from two different worlds, I realise there's something that they have in common, and that is the passion for life. One who spends their career saving lives and giving life back to children, and a young person that wants to live their life to the fullest that they can.
All I know is a life you live won't come again. Oh, hold it close like a mother holds her children. And when you're feeling left alone, with your smiling eyes but you're dancing in the snow, when you have nowhere to go, you know you're home. You know you're home. Maybe it's the stars in the night, maybe it's the moon to bring the tides alive, maybe it's the strings on your hand, only to create, not to control a man.
What's that fantasy?
All I know is a life you live won't come again. Oh, hold it close like a mother holds her child.